do you have a balanced movement pattern in order to achieve those different skills and tactics at level 2? You guys with me so far?
Got it.
Awesome. Then we take another step down and we start looking at level 3. And when I was coming up in the CERT process, I was always told that level 3 means anything, anywhere, in any conditions, right? So it's being able to have mastery of your movements in order to have any number of different outcomes, right? But I feel like those outcomes can become very specific when we get to the CERT 3 level. We look at what's on the task chart and what's kind of in the box. And a lot of times we as trainers train very specifically to those tasks and the movements within those tasks. And one thing that starts to occur to me as we take the next step down is, does being in that certification box limit our outcomes? And so now let's take a step down to ground level and we look at RMT. And in Rocky Mountain, the biggest way I've heard to summarize RMT riding is changing movement patterns on the drop of a dime, being able to isolate movements and have mastery over movements. I think one of my favorite lines from Tony Macri was the difference between riding your snowboard and driving your snowboard. Does that make sense, you guys? So when we look at RMT, it's how fast can you go from one to the other and have mastery to a level that means instant changes with that mastery. So if you guys have ever taken an event with me, you know that my specialty is posing more questions than I answer. And so I'm going to pose a couple of questions and hope that this group can come up with a couple of my desired outcomes, whether it be one or whether it be multiples. And I kind of came up with 3 desired outcomes for this. And one, as trainers, is to help our candidates set and achieve measurable objectives outside of the pass or fail of certification. Number 2 is develop personal measurable objectives based on your own development pathway. So where you are right now, if you're going for RMT or if you're going for Ed Staff or if you're going for Cert 3, kind of how can you develop some of your own personal objectives and then begin to execute them. And then another one, and this one's kind of for me, and what I'm hoping to get out of this is being able to reset measurable outcomes when you're at the highest level. And let me give you guys my personal example is where I'm at in my own snowboarding. I'm the head coach of a program. I absolutely love it. It keeps me extremely busy. I look at myself with AASI as a resource for our members to continue their development. But my next step is not one that can be defined with an achievement. For example, I'm not interested in going out for a national team. I'm an E1 and I'm not interested in going to E2. And I guess my personal objective is to always be better at what I do, but that's not necessarily measurable, right? So that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of this. So here's kind of the questions that I want to roll around with you guys, but also understanding a couple challenges that go into your personal development at the level that you guys are at as many trainers, managers, you know, whatever your personal role is. But I kind of came up with 3 challenges, and these are challenges that I face on a daily basis. And number 1 is the more time you spend leading training, the less feedback you ultimately get from peers or people that you see as helping you through your development. Another one, as we become busier, we tend to have less time to focus on personal development, and we have to get really creative with finding the opportunities for personal development. Like I know when I was going for RMT, it was, you know, when I had a high level lesson, I would work on specific movement patterns, right? So just a quick example. And then one more. Hi guys, this is my son Shay. And one more, as we begin to put more energy into the success of others, personal success can take a back seat. So I want to give you guys a quick example of these questions, but what they are is, what is a measurable objective when looking at your development? Or maybe you can use a candidate as an example. And how have you trained to it or trained for it, whether successful or unsuccessful? Does that make sense? Thumbs up. Awesome. Let me give you guys
Can you write the questions in the chat portion? Can you you can like type them out, because I would love to just read it and then be able to go back to it.
Yeah.
And then I'll mute myself again.
No worries. Let me get that going. So once again, question number 1, what is a measurable objective when looking at your development at whatever level? Okay. And question 2, how have you trained to it or trained for it, whether successful or unsuccessful? And I'll give you guys a quick example. So when I was going for my RMT, I felt like my biggest weakness was edge sets. I freaking hated edge sets at this point. I felt like I did not know how to do them. And in order to achieve my objective of mastering edge sets, I probably spent easily 20 direct hours of just doing that. And I got feedback and tips from multiple different sources in order to do it. And ultimately that helped me gain mastery over that skill. So I want to kind of open it up to you guys and make this a little bit more of a discussion. So who's got something?
I think Rocky Mountain sets us up pretty well to have at least a guideline, or I don't know, kind of a bar to reach for each of those levels. You're talking about level 1, 2, and 3, like the basic movement patterns. I think that's an easy standard to shoot for the level 1, is the movement pattern for, you know, that most extended edge change stuff. It's all pretty basic. And can you change your riding enough to show a basic form? At that level 2, requiring them to understand the opposite movement pattern, at least in their forward riding, and then the opposite riding is pretty cool, because it shows that you need to understand both of those, and that makes it pretty easy to go for. As we get to level 3, I've actually found some struggle with candidates that have been taking it in other divisions. And in Rocky Mountain, there's a set series of tasks, right? We have a task chart for exactly what you're going to perform, and then some versatility stuff. And then as you get to like Central Division, they're pretty clear about the movement pattern they're looking for, but then it's kind of up to them. You know, there's some stuff that you know is probably going to be in there, you know, some skidded turns, some carb turns, some switch stuff, some basic pipe requirements, but then it's kind of up in the air, and it's up to them to work, or I should say, to put the candidates through a variety of unnamed tasks to see that movement pattern. And it gets a little trickier. And then as you get to RMT, it's about doing all the tasks at all possible times, whether it's necessary or wise. I don't know, that one gets pretty fun. I like how you were talking about RMT is just the true mastery of those movements. But I feel like RMT sets us up with a pretty nice standard for a lot of that stuff. As far as your personal riding, Ronnie, man, that is the hardest one, right? How can you tell that you're better than you were before? I think one of the things that you need to start measuring in as well is the results of the people around you, because that's a lot of what you were putting your energy into. So you have to measure your tangible results and other people's results. There's my piece to that.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And yeah, that input. Who else has something that they think goes along with this idea of like setting measurable objectives and training to them?
When I first heard you talk about like measurable objectives, anyone that knows me knows I'm a big like numbers guy, and that's the first thing that kind of came into my head is numbers. And I know not everyone is big on like math and numbers and whatnot, but I think keeping data, keeping track of what you're doing, is an effective way at kind of holding the mirror up to yourself and saying, are you progressing? Are you hitting those objectives? I think in the snowboarding world, there's definitely times that, you know, especially in the freestyle realm, like, you know, if you did or did not land a trick, it's like a 1 or a 0. Yeah, you can keep track of, like, you can set goals of, I want to land 10 of these tricks this season, or in a specific, in a quantifiable time frame. But even beyond just like freestyle, like, it can be something as simple. I know for me, still measurable, I set a goal of, like, I'm gonna explore this section of Vale, and I probably could have put a certain number to it, but I'm gonna explore this section of Vale more this year. And so the more you can kind of attach numbers to it, the more you can have a set outcome of, did I meet that goal or did I not? And I think one scary part of setting such distinct pass or fail objectives for yourself is we're all worried about failing. But at the end of the day, if you don't meet an objective, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that either A, you set your objective too high, or B, there's just more that you can do to meet that objective.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It's like the Michael Jordan story, right? Failure breeds success. Sorry, who is getting ready to talk?
I wanted to chime in on. So my prepared RMT clinic was actually going to be on threshold training. Have you guys heard of threshold? Nod your head if yes or no, maybe a little bit. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. So the definition is a limit, a point that must be exceeded in order for favorable adaptations to occur. So I like to think of it kind of what Adam was saying with numbers. If you're in your comfort zone, which is below your threshold, you're hitting whatever that skill is 10 out of 10 times that you try it. And then you kind of have this panic zone, which is well above your threshold, that maybe you're making it 2 out of 10 times, 1 out of 10 times, you know, and with whatever skill that is. And then your threshold is kind of the learning zone. It's when you're making it like 6 out of 10 times, and those other 4 times you're like, okay, this is the little piece that I need to tweak. All right, cool. And then you make it the next time, you make it the next time, you don't make it the next time. You're like, okay, now I need to tweak this little piece. And I find that using that, for me anyway, kind of thinking as threshold is kind of like this moving spectrum. Because if you're in that zone where you're hitting things 6 out of 10 times, then it becomes 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, then that becomes your comfort zone. Your threshold moves. It moves a little bit, and it gets you a little bit closer to the panic zone that I was talking about. But everything is just kind of constant movement along that realm. And I like a lot of freestyle riding. Like, I like to ride in the park. And like Adam said, like, that's something that you can be like, okay, yeah, I hit it, or yeah, I didn't hit it. But this is something that I've been able to put in with like my bump riding, which is not my forte. Getting better at it though. But yeah, threshold training. Actually, I like to call it threshold. Yeah, and that's just kind of something that I've kind of been playing with a little bit, and I think it kind of goes to yours with like the measurable outcomes and how I continue my own training as well as helping others.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. Kevin Bentley, go for it, dude. KB, you're still, I think you're muted or your volume's down.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we're good.
Yeah, Lynn has control of that. So my thought on the measurable outcomes or objectives, the way I look at it, if any of you are familiar with me and my style, I'm a trainaholic. Like, I will literally kill myself talking about thresholds. I will go beyond my threshold literally every day to try and get an inch better. But the way I think about it is twofold. One, when it comes to our exam process, I hate the word failure. So unless you're giving up, you're not trying anymore, eliminate that word from your vocabulary, because you didn't fail unless you gave up. Because what happens is, if you set measurable objectives along the pathway to whatever exam or search you're going for, regardless of the results on the far end, which is the exam process, Maybe you got better at your threes. Maybe you got better at your bump riding. Maybe you got better at MA and teaching or whatnot. So that piece right there means you were successful. You weren't as successful as you wanted to be, but you were successful because you did hit some goals and milestones along the way. In terms of my personal riding, I will ride with friends. I will videotape myself. I've done this, is set up a tripod in the park and lap and hike. I've ridden with Tommy. I've ridden with you, Lynn. So I do look for feedback. But the one piece that I've become very aware of is my movement patterns, my strengths and weaknesses, and having that self-awareness piece. As we talk about riding at an RMT level, you really have to know yourself and understand who you are. And I think a lot of times as candidates, as riders, whatnot, we go externally a lot to get that feedback, to understand how we can get better, instead of taking the ownership on ourselves and maybe studying the AASI system or the AASI system or whatever, to just close those gaps and further our knowledge and understanding and skill set. And so that's kind of how I think about objectives, measurable objectives in my development.
Nice. That's awesome, KB. I love it. Lynn, shoot.
I think measurable objective is an interesting thing to talk about because one, it depends on where we're getting it from. Are we getting the feedback internally or externally? If we're getting it internally, it depends on our metacognitive ability. And like Adam was saying, the social comparison allows us to identify that. So it depends. I mean, when I first started training for certs, I definitely trained to the task. And I didn't know what I was doing until a trainer told me. But now it seems like you're training for something, but not something specific. And you can measure it by your success overall and how you give yourself feedback. And I think your ability to give feedback, your metacognition, is your ability to tell if you're successful or unsuccessful when meeting a measurable objective.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to think about it, is can you measure the objective yourself in terms of your own success? I think that's awesome. Tommy B, I want to pick on you. I'm going to volunteer you to give your input because I feel like it's got you written all over it.
I knew you were going to say something like that. So we talk about these tasks that we're trying to achieve, these certain skills that we're trying to do. But something that I've kind of got into recently is quantifying the ability to train. Okay, so let's say I want to train with 10 different RMT people this year. Well, that's going to give me 10 new experiences, 10 new viewpoints on whatever subject we're talking about, just like we're doing here. So, and then another way to look at measuring your development or being objective in measuring it is I want to do 2 hours of training a day. And then we allocate how much training, or allocate what we're training towards, whether that's bump riding, an hour of MA every single night, but actually changing it in a way of like, for me, I need to know that I'm putting the work in, and I do that by how much time I'm actually allocating to that. So when I was going for RMT, which I did fail my first time, it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because it told me I didn't do enough. So then the next time I came in with a better understanding. So then I was doing, 1 hour at 5 a.m. I'd wake up and study for an hour before I go to work. And then I would do milk runs and then ride for an hour at the end of the day and then go do an MA as many times as possible. So finding a way to measure effort and input, because most times people fail, not all the times, but most time people fail is they didn't put in the work. They didn't put enough time in. You went to 3 trainings all year. That's not going to lead to success. But if you can go to 100 days like Andrew does, Andrew puts in 100 days of training a year, that's going to lead to a success, opportunity, and growth. And so that's kind of my viewpoint on kind of your first question. That's all I got. I can't hear you guys anymore.
We're all muted, Tommy. We're trying to be respectful. Okay.
I was like, this is awkwardly silent right now. This is a little weird. My bad.
I'll chime in again if that's cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on the outcome, on was I successful? Was I unsuccessful? I didn't fail. Was I unsuccessful, KB? I hear you. So when I go out and ride, I make sure that I'm in a positive mental state. You know, if you're kicking yourself in the ass before you go out there because you're like, oh, I didn't do it yesterday, I didn't do it the day before, I didn't do it the day before that, and you're just beating yourself down, I think that hinders a lot of the progress that you should be getting. When I go out, I have a mantra, and I've had it for the past couple years because I used to kick myself in the butt when I wouldn't do things correctly or was unsuccessful or whatever. And it's progress, not perfection. So every time I go out riding, whether it's just making turns and teaching a beginner, whether it's just like a half lap, bump riding, something I'm enjoying, something I'm not enjoying, everything is progress towards being successful at whatever it is that I want, because the more time you spend on your board, the more comfortable you're gonna be on your board. And I stress that a lot in my trainings. Just when I'm leading training clinics, I'm like, you know, today is about progress. It's not about being perfect. It's not about nailing it. If you do, that's awesome. That means you made those baby steps to get to this outcome that you want. But today might not be the day, and that's okay.
Yeah, totally. And so one common theme that I'm hearing, and I just kind of wanted to point this out, is that a lot of us have started to move the objective into like success at an event, like what Tommy was talking about, what you were just talking about, Corey. And I think kind of what I want to try and dive into a little bit is, let's get specific with some of these objectives. Let's think about, like, as I'm training for, say, my RMT ride, right? And I know that anything under the sun can be thrown at me. What is something, and anybody chime in, but what's something that you feel like is your weakness that you need to train to?
I'll chime in.
Yeah.
Low edge angle shit is my weakness overall. Like any sort of like pivoty, slidey, like real flat board stuff. And so, you know, recently I've been competing in free ride stuff, and that's not usually a ton of low edge angle stuff unless you're straight lining. So I've been doing that a lot, just straight lining places. That's been good, just for like comfort, just not edging at all, ever.
But we love our edges, unless I'm on a rail. But so, Conrad, what are some of the things that you do to give yourself more control with less edge angle?
I've been really focusing on like steering my body with a like wind resistance thing, kind of like the torsional, or like not torsional, like lateral stability with like a rotation of the upper body, just like steer your body with wind resistance. That's been fun.
So just kind of trying new things, new movements to see what kind of outcomes you get, right?
Yeah.
And I personally think that that's one of the most important things that we can do as snowboarders, is remember that this is snowboarding. And as we're training for all of these different things, whatever it may be, if it's a cert level, if it's RMT, if it's head staff, but understanding that pushing your snowboarding is the most important thing. And whatever that means can be different for everyone. But I find that we oftentimes get trapped inside the box, right? We get trapped inside the task box. And so when we go out, we're like, I'm going to work on my most flex at edge change movement pattern today. And like Corey was saying, I'm going to look for those inches so that I can hopefully gain a foot and then gain a mile in terms of being successful at this particular level, whatever that might be. And my challenge to you guys in kind of bringing this topic up is, what are some ways that you can put that? I think one of my favorite examples, and like Tommy just did this super rad thing with Ryan Nathan, like the different ways that you can carve and doing tricks. And yeah, I watch you, Tommy. I see you. But you know, like one task that is probably all of our most favorites that is not in any certification level is the Euro carve, right? At no point, if you want to break down what a Euro carve is, right? It's a large radius closed carve turn where you're most extended at edge change, right? We don't necessarily do that as a task, but being able to own movements over that task, if I'm going to be nerdy about it, can then open doors for many other possibilities within your snowboarding, right? And so for you guys going for RMT, that would be my challenge, would be to say, not only how can you work towards the Cert 3 level or the RMT level, but how can you push your snowboard forward, and how can you begin to accentuate your weakness, right? Does that make sense to you guys? Thumbs up. So I guess to go back to kind of some of the desired outcomes, and what I think is cool is that for me personally, like, it's really hard for me to set a next objective because I feel like I've achieved so much in my snowboarding career that it's hard for me to think about what comes next because I'm constantly challenged with the things that are in front of me on a day-by-day basis. And so I guess my takeaway is that in my own snowboarding, I'm going to look for things that I can become better at. Like in the last 2 years, because I ride so much park, my bumps have gone to total garbage. So maybe maintaining that could be my next measurable objective, is kind of getting back to where I was from a technical standpoint. But I hope that you guys are able to think about your own objectives and be able to think about how you can set them and how you can train to them, and think about your own development within that. So I guess that's kind of the topic, unless anybody has something else that came up in their heads.
The only thing I had was you said something about like how is personal success defined as you get to a point where, like you said, like now you're at a level where it's like hard to push to that next zone because you're already at that top area. And that I think that now, some form of personal success is going to be derived. And I think Corey might have said this, and maybe a couple others, by the success of others around you is huge. So
you want to know the successful, Conrad? That CS1 we did a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
That was a good success.
That was.
Well,
that's all I
Ronnie,
had.
I liked what you're talking about when it comes to like understanding your weaknesses. And then I kind of alluded to this earlier, is riding with people that have that your weakness is somebody else's strength. So if I'm struggling in bumps, I want to find the guy who's the sickest at bumps and be able to leverage them to be able to get that feedback, because they may have a little secret that could just be the smallest little thing that's going to change the game for me. And that happened to me when I was doing Cert 3 in RMT, was somebody told me to do something with my shoulders, and it was so basic, and I've heard it, but the right person said it, and I believed in them, and all of a sudden it clicked and made such a big difference. But, we have a lot of amazing people in this group, and being able to utilize them. And obviously we're kind of far away and we can't snowboard, but understanding where people's strengths are, and let's utilize that. I love training with a lot of different people because everybody has something to offer, and let's just steal that one thing from that person. Even if, sometimes we may not give people credibility, give them an opportunity, hear what they're saying, take it in, understand where they're coming from, and then use it or not. But that's the coolest thing about RMT, is like you can do anything and everything. So working with different people really like highlights that. Like Ronnie is really good at this, well, I'm gonna go hang out with that dude and do stuff there, and then somebody else is really good at something else. So the RMT and Cert 3 process is intense, it's emotional, it's gnarly, but enjoying the process, being willing to work on your weakness, and having the courage to go for it is like the biggest things that helped me lead to the success at RMT level. Is just courage and willing to put yourself out there. It was a big deal. For sure.
Cool.
KB, you got something?
Oh, yeah, no, I was asking Tommy what was the tip with his shoulders.
Don't be lame.
Don't be lame.
No, I don't remember. It was a while.
One of the things I think about, we've talked a lot about training on our snowboard, right? And exploring movement patterns on our snowboard. One of the things that I think is underutilized, and I had to tap into in my own riding this year to overcome some deficiencies, is cross training. We've all played different sports. We all, we've worked out, we've run, we've done these different things. And you can actually have breakthroughs off the snow, off your board, if you effectively cross train to that movement. I think everyone who has ridden with me knows I'm a big, powerful guy, and I love to use that power all the time. Well, my daughter plays golf, and last year, after RMT, one of the things that I got dinged on was my hillside separation, upper body, lower body wasn't defined enough. And so what I've done to help that is I've started playing golf, which is like the epitome of upper body, lower body separation, both on the backswing and the follow through. And what it's taught me is to be softer in my legs from the waist down, which will allow me to get that rotational piece without moving my entire body.
I think that's
so I wouldn't rule out cross training, especially now while we're all quarantined.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I want to kind of leave you guys with this quote as you're talking, KB. I don't know if you guys know who Chris Corning is. Tommy, I know you do. But Chris Corning is one of the U.S. team slopestyle and big air athletes, and he's a huge dirt biker. And I can't remember if it was an interview or just something that he said, but one of the things he said is that, you know, dirt biking is so great because it challenges me mentally to focus on something other than snowboarding. And that allows me to focus more on my snowboarding. And I think that that's really cool that you brought that up, KB, because, you know, using Chris as an example, you know, he's not necessarily working on his physical development, but more so his mental, so that he can perform in the right place at the right time. And just kind of another example, like KB was saying, like another sport can help you with movement deficiencies. Well, another activity or hobby can help you with mental deficiencies as well, or even not necessarily a deficiency, but just strengthening your mindset.
I'd also like to add, like, with that kind of mindset, being able to cross train into something different helps you take your mind off of like all the stress you have in achieving a goal in your first discipline, like snowboarding per se. Like, I think that's a really cool idea.
Love it, Claire. Sully, did you have something?
Yeah. Well, riding and coaching at such a high level, do you all factor in anything to do with the flow state in your own game or how you teach others? And
I love it.
Is everybody familiar with that terminology, first off?
I would think
if you're an athlete, you better be.
I hope so. Yeah, because I coach gymnastics, parkour, ski, and hopefully snowboard soon. And, you know, it's true for all of them. And I've been doing some research through the Flow Genome Project, and that's actually my next coaching certification I'm going to get now that they canceled the snowboard exams for the rest of the winter. So I'll hopefully know more about it soon. But, you know, I've been doing a lot of research into that, and I also realized the therapeutic health aspects of it, because apparently when you're at that, say, if this is a graph and this is your skill and this is the challenge or the risk associated, flow state is up here when you're at the peak of both, and your body actually releases a whole bunch of nitric oxide and flushes a bunch of negative chemicals from your body. You get that endorphin release and dopamine, and it flushes your nervous system of all the negative shit, and that's, you know, a lot of where that high comes from. But is that something you guys incorporate or even think about, or is it just a byproduct of, you know, your sport, your practice, your coaching game, whatever?
Personally address
that.
Yeah,
I can. I can talk to this one for sure.
Go, Katie.
So, you know, being that highlining is my other sport, and that is very, very flow oriented. It has really changed the bar of like what it's like for me snowboarding. Things that used to really test my mental capacity are so much less of a problem now, because I'm training that end of my spectrum so much with highlining. So yeah, I would definitely say incorporating that into your practice, whether that be through yoga or some other means. I mean, it's really changed like my whole outlook.
Have you guys found any ways you hack into it that you prefer?
Highlining.
I mean, like breathing practices, like say during snowboarding specifically, not other activities.
Music, lots of music.
Yeah, music works for me as well, and I've been focusing on breathing as well, because I'm someone that kind of gets too much anxiety, and so breathing has helped a lot for me.
Nice. That's awesome. And another one, I sat on this really cool clinic a couple of years ago about performance cues and what you can do to get your mind ready to focus in. Like if you watch like any Travis Rice video from the end of time, you'll see him do two things consistently before he drops into something. He'll flip to his nose and his tail, and he'll clap his hands twice, and he goes, right? And so I think that's a really cool thing that you bring up, because as we go into some of the certification processes, and especially ride day when you're being assessed or evaluated on how you're moving in that moment, being able to step away from that cognitive realm of like, am I making these movements, and being able to step into a state where you're ready to just snowboard and move the way that you can move, and be able to give it 100% in more of an autonomous state and less of a cognitive state, I think is crucial to being successful. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of bring that up, because as we think about measurable objectives, we can think about the more time, like Tommy was saying, the more time that I put into something, the higher level of mastery that I can get out of it. And then I can go into an exam or an assessment and be able to move more fluidly and less cognitively. And I think that's really cool that you guys are talking about breathing, and how that helps you, because that's going to segue us perfectly into our next segment from KB on breathing.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you, guys.
KB, you there?
Nobody can hear you, KB.
Here, let me unmute you. I think you're on mute. Yeah, you're totally on mute. Okay, you good?
Yeah. Yeah, Lynn doesn't like me. She mutes me. So, as Ronnie mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit to you guys about breathing, and how it affects performance. So I'll segue. I know I introduced myself briefly earlier, but I'll circle back for those of you that were not had not yet joined. My name is KB. I'm out of Vail. I am a Cert 3 on the snowboard side. I'm a children's RMT, and in the RMT process, also in the ASF process for children's. I have my Ski 1. I have my USSA 300 as well as my Aerial 200. So I think I'm well versed, well educated on a lot of things. The one thing that's lacking for me is my riding, because I don't spend as much time on snow as probably everyone else. My prior background is I was a professional football player for 10 years, so have a lot of experience on the coaching side, training side, etc. And the reason I want to talk to you guys about breathing, I think it came up a couple of times here today, as a objective cue, how to enhance performance. Also, in terms of get into the flow state, which I am very familiar with. And so I appreciate the gentleman bringing that up. But what I want you to do real quick is close your eyes and just listen to your breath. So give me about 10 seconds, maybe take about 3 or 4 breaths for me. All right, awesome. Were you guys fully aware of your breath? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Were you fully aware of your breath? Where was your breathing coming from? Was it your chest? Was it your stomach, your belly? Where did you feel the breath as you were taking those inhales and exhales? Put up a 1 if it was your chest. Put up a 2 if it was your belly. Awesome. All right. So, yeah, the purpose of breath as we know it is really for oxygen to come in, poison to go out, right? We inhale oxygen, we push out the poison. But there's a bigger cue here in terms of performance. And I'm going to talk to you guys about 3 types of breathing today. The first one is belly breathing. The second is shallow breathing. And the third, which I believe is most important, is what I call conscious breathing. That's what we did when I had you close your eyes and tune into your breath. So let me start with the shallow breathing. Ronnie, that feeling you felt in your chest is what's called shallow breathing. So what that means is you're not taking in enough oxygen, you're not energizing your muscles, and there's many factors as to why people breathe only from the chest and the neck up. It could be stress, it could be tension, it could be the coronavirus right now, right, and all the things that are wearing us down. But most importantly, that chest breathing and creates tension, but not tension in the sense that we can use. It is a stress tension. It is a, when you're scared, you breathe up here, right? Everything's tense here. When you're relaxed and in a flow state, everything comes from the gut and the belly. So the people that felt the stomach, that is belly breathing. We use it in yoga. We use it, some people use it when they're getting ready to perform. Prior to performance, you mentioned Travis Rice takes these deep breaths and he does his routine. But what that does is that allows our body to relax and flow. And there's many benefits to the belly breathing. It reduces tension. It creates core stability. It actually improves the body's ability to tolerate intense exercise, activities, and situations. It actually lowers your chance of injury. If you think about football players, and I know it looks like a brutal sport, but when those collisions happen, the reason we don't get hurt is because we're using our breath in a way that allows us to explode and relax at the same time. And so those hits are kind of like, I equate it to, and this might be a bad analogy, so I apologize if anyone's dealt with this, but when you drink, you get really, really relaxed. And if someone was to hit you or you fall down, you're not going to fight the fall, you're going to go with it. Therefore, you don't end up hurt, right? And so the last piece about deep breathing, it is actually allows you to expend less energy so you can actually perform longer and sustain that performance. You guys with me so far? Awesome. So if you've ever worked out, which I believe most of us are or have, what I want you to do is I want you to stand up, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So yeah, we're going to move a little bit. I'm taking a page out of Andrew's book, Active MA. So what I want you to do is take a deep breath and then try to squat fluidly. Take a deep breath and hold it and try to squat. Now, I want you to take a nice inhale through the duration of your squat. On the way down, inhale as much as possible. On the way up, blow it out. Did you experience increased range of motion? Thumbs up if you did. Was your squat more fluid? Thumbs up if it was. Awesome. Now what I want you to do, and I'm going to take this to freestyle, and this is something that I'm going to piggyback off of something I learned from Tommy a couple of years ago. What that belly breathing allows you to do is to create functional tension, but allow you to still fluidly move, okay? And so with that, when you think about your bump riding, when you think about your pipe riding, when you think about 360s, do you actually consciously focus in on what your breathing is doing, in and out of turns, up and over jumps, up and down the wall in the pipe? Maybe, maybe not.
I try to.
I
yeah,
do.
but we don't.
Yes.
But most people don't focus on the breathing, right? And that breathing not only can be a cue, but it can also limit or enhance your performance in anything you're doing, in this case, snowboarding. So you think about bump riding, if I'm holding my breath and trying to rotate at the same time because I'm nervous or afraid, that is not going to be a fluid motion. It's not going to allow me to create separation, use one part of my body and not the other. But if I can breathe through a bump, look at how much more separation I can get while keeping the lower body free to manipulate the bumps. So what I would challenge everyone to do is to really start thinking about not only your breath, but how you're using it. Is it creating the right tension at the right times? Is it enhancing your performance, or is it limiting your performance, right? Because going back to the short breath, that's a sign of fear. And we all know what happens when we're fearful. We stiffen up. Happens all the time in exams. Oh my God, they threw a task at us at RMT that I didn't really train as much as I probably should have. I start holding my breath because I don't know how I'm going to perform. Instead of relaxing through it, knowing that I have the skills to do it and using my breath to help me to be a little bit more fluid and a little bit more in that flow state where the two things come together so I can actually move fluidly without actually thinking about it. What breathing also does is it gives you something else to focus on besides the task at hand. And so if you can focus on your breath, just like in yoga, I'm a big yogi. If I can focus on my breath, all of a sudden I'm doing the splits and people are like, holy shit, this 250-pound guy can do the splits. That shouldn't happen. And so I want to open it up to you guys of how do you use your breath? Are you focusing on it? And what other applications do you see that's being beneficial?
So I'll chime in first. I've coached gymnastics for 15 years and I'm now a CrossFit coach. So I use breathing a lot, especially with those athletes. And the way I like to introduce it instead of, first of all, I loved how elaborate you went into it and how you had us do stuff. When I introduce it to people, I simply start with like, take one breath before you go. And before they even before they're thinking about things, they're tuning into their breath instead of their nerves. You know, like when I'm coaching like a 7-year-old to not, do backflips on a balance beam, I'm like, hey, before you touch the balance beam, take a deep breath, then go before you even touch it. So I think kind of coming up with a the simplest way to introduce it is key for the people that we train or even ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I use breathing all the time. I mean, other than obviously living, that's definitely in my practice when I ride.
Awesome. I see Ronnie has his hand up.
Yeah, it was really cool what you said, because I just wanted to share the way that I introduce it, and it's kind of a little bit opposite of what you do, Corey. But when I start introducing breathing, oftentimes it's because I'm asking someone to do something that they're highly uncomfortable with doing. And so I take them into a place where they can feel their breath. And then I like to focus on the heart and the heart rate. And I really use visualization with this. So for example, like if I'm having someone do a backflip off of a jump and they get nervous, I like to have them take a deep breath and visualize the backflip. And if we're doing it right, if it's something that makes us feel nervous, then it's going to accelerate our heart rate a little bit, right? And I like to use breathing to be able to control that heart rate and then help them set up a way to take a breath, like you said, before you drop in or before you do the trick, and then you take a breath and you just do it so that your body's a little bit more relaxed. So just wanted to build off that a little bit.
I think that's awesome. And both of you hit on, Corey and Ronnie hit on key points. I know I talked about it within the realm of an activity, but you can be just as successful using breathing before you enter an activity, before you enter a competition to settle those nerves. to get your mind focused on anything but the task. I know talking to Easy, and last year I nailed my changeup, and I'm going to be quite honest, I knew I didn't train the changeup as much as I should have. And I took a few deep breaths beforehand, and that settled my nerves. And I was freaking out about it, I'm going to be honest, because I knew it was coming. As soon as I saw Tony Macri was my examiner, I knew the changeup was coming. And I took 3 huge breaths, opened my eyes, and I was so relaxed. I was like, go now, do it. And I stuck it. And that was not because of my skill, well, partly skill, but mainly because of my pre-routine leading into the task. I set myself up for success by calming my nerves with the deep breaths, focusing on something other than the task at hand, and it allowed me to be successful. Lynn, I saw your hand up.
I've been working on using a breath as a performance cue before I do a test, like before I'll drop into the pipe, before I do a bump run, and that's huge. Was anyone at that MSM where Jordan Roop did the clinic on performance cues? It sounds a little like the one you
the
did.
clinic I was talking about.
Yeah, that was really cool. I took that idea and figured if I used something like that, it could help me get into a flow state. That's kind of an interesting way to look at it.
Awesome. I do see something for Andrew, and I think this is a critical one. This is something I started doing as well in my pipe writing, and it is focusing on my breath. So what I do is up the wall, I inhale. So it gives me that functional tension to stay stout, but not exactly push away from the wall with my powerful legs. And on the way down, you know, a lot of us don't like that woozy feeling we get in our stomach. And so what we do is we usually land really abruptly. But what I've started to do is actually exhale on the landing, kind of like if I'm in a roller coaster, settles the stomach, but the functional tension now is in my core, but it still allows me to flow fluidly. And so I think, Andrew, that was a great point about breathing, especially for me being a bigger guy on my hillside wall. I need all of the relaxation I can get. Any other points or? Oh.
I've got a couple of things with breathing. When I talk with my clients, usually this comes into play when I'm dealing with clients who are extremely nervous. And something I've gleaned from years of like just studying psychology is if someone's super nervous, something you can do to calm them down is focus on the 5 senses. So you can repeat this. You go, what's something I can see? What's something I can hear? What's something I can smell? What's something I can taste? And what's something I can feel? So for instance, and I do this sometimes if I'm about to like do a comp run, I compete in Big Mountain, and sometimes like lines that I'm going to take put me over exposure. And I don't want to be thinking about what can happen if I fall, because the consequences could be serious. So I think about, okay, what's something I can taste? Maybe it's like the taste of, I don't know, my gum or something. What's something I can hear? Maybe it's my music in my ear. What's something I can feel? Maybe it's like the soft fleece in my glove. What's something I can see? I can see my friend cheering me on like right before I drop in. And then what's something I can smell? And I always put lavender right here on my wrist every morning, like every morning. So I always just like smell that lavender. So it gives me another cue for my breathing. And I do this with my clients. And I just have them repeat this, like the 5 senses, and breathing is part of that. You have to be able to breathe in to smell something. So I have them do that. Maybe it's the smell of like just the fresh air, or maybe it's the smell of pine trees or something. But it's just drawing awareness to that breath and like adding another element to it. So that's how I talk about it with people. Another thing is posture, because breathing is all fine and dandy, but if our posture is like this, we can't breathe as effectively. Like we can't uptake as much oxygen. So maybe it's not even talking about breathing itself with my clients, but maybe I'm noticing they're starting to round their shoulders when they ride. And I want to talk to them about expanding their chest so that they can uptake oxygen more effectively. Because I can still belly breathe and round my shoulders,
but I'm not getting in as much oxygen as I could if I like have an upright spine, right? And then the last thing I wanted to mention is I've noticed personally when I'm learning a task, if I'm in the cognitive phase of that task rather than the associative or the autonomous phase, my breathing tends to be like one of the last things I think about if I'm in the cognitive phase of a task. Let's say it's like, I don't know, something on a box or a rail. I'm not thinking about breathing through the task, but maybe I'm riding bumps and I'm doing like a flexion extension pattern. I'm thinking about breathing because I'm way more comfortable doing bump riding or something. So that's something I've been personally working on, is if I'm in a task and I'm learning it and I'm in that cognitive phase or in that associative phase, I have to be way more conscious about my breathing versus if I'm in the autonomous phase with a task. So those are my thoughts on breathing. I know it's a lot, but I am a yoga instructor, so this like really resonates with me.
David, you have your hand up. I think those are awesome points. I might have to steal the 5 senses.
So I found a good way to isolate those changes, whether you're indoor or out. If you're indoor and you say have a foam block nearby, or you're outdoor and you know, you can use snow if you have nothing else. If you can lay flat on your back with your hips and knees at right angles, so you know, whether you put your feet on a snowboard slightly uphill or whatever, if you can like have your feet on, say, couch level, you can put the snow or foam block or what have you up by people's hip flexors and have them try to breathe deeply and imagine it's a full cylinder that is their core, and you know, try to press their lower back flat against the ground and raise the foam block at the same time. You'll get the maximum air volume in and out. And if you can have them try to flex their diaphragm and feel themselves getting taller as they exhale, like it highly therapeutic. You maximize air volume and they calm the fuck down super quickly. That's all I wanted to add.
No, awesome. I might butcher this name, Branyan.
Yeah, no, you got it. You got it. So I do a similar thing with the 5 senses for all of the reasons that have already been said. But another reason I've been doing that is because it helps me intentionally get out of my head and into my body. And it allows me to make cognitive decisions based on the feedback that I'm getting from my body. So I can tune in to, say, my core and ask myself, okay, I'm sensing tension in my core. Is that tension serving me? You know, and allowing me to use that tension to wind and unwind, or is that tension nervousness and I need to do something to calm down? So anyway, just kind of bottom lining, I use that scanning of the 5 senses to get out of my head and into my body to make cognitive decisions.
Awesome. I love that. I'm loving the discussion. I know we've been sitting for a minute, so what I want you to do real quick, I'm going to have us go back to that conscious breathing. What I want you to do is I want you to think about the furthest point away from your head, which should be your big toe, correct? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about the breath, like you're literally as you inhale, you're pulling the breath all the way from your big toe up to your lungs. And as you exhale, I want you to slowly push that breath all the way back to your foot. Awesome. How relaxed are you? That 1 or 2 breaths that you took, did your body just kind of melt and like relax a ton? Was the breathing now coming from your belly versus your chest, Ronnie? Right, as you focused on pulling that breath in and out. So little things like that can really enhance your performance. It can really enhance your cognitive ability. as Brendan mentioned. So my challenge to you all, and we can continue the discussion a little bit longer. I want to be mindful of time, but every morning and every night, take 5 to 10 deep breaths and exhales where you're pulling from your big toe all the way through to the top of your head, and then you're pushing that energy and breath out from the top of your head back to your pinky toe or your big toe. Any other comments on the breathing and how it can enhance your performance, whether it's a pre-cue, a in activity cue, or even post-cue? Because I know after the majority of us, after we nail something, we're like, like that was sick. And you blow out all this energy that just allows you to relax because you now achieved the task. Think about being able to bring that to the front end of the task or the activity and how much more your performance will increase over that. Corianne, I see your hand up.
This might sound a little cheesy, but I think that's okay. So I like to do visualizations with the breathing. So if you imagine like your nerves or being scared is this kind of like dark energy, and your body's kind of filled with that dark energy. When you breathe in, you imagine breathing in like a really light energy and feeling your body and filling your body from your big toe to your head with this light energy. And when you breathe out that dark energy, and you can kind of like visualize and see that. And sometimes I imagine it almost as like breathing out fire. And then when I breathe in again, it's a little more light energy. And then when I breathe out a little more fire. And then I breathe in a little more light energy. And then eventually my whole body, I can like, you know, I can see my body being more vibrant, having that light inside and breathing out that dark. That also makes me feel good. And it starts at my toes and goes to my head as well. I like that as a little
awesome
visualization. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything?
I just have one thing about like core stability, because you were talking about that a little bit. And I do find with breathing, I have the most core stability when I have like a full inhalation of breath and I'm holding it. Like visualize like the bottom of a squat or something, and like just before you're about to explode out. So like if you're ever about to experience a really hard impact or something like that, like trying to bring the breath as far down as possible, but like keeping that, you know, that air mass inside can help stabilize everything down there as well. So like, you know, if you're about to like shoot to flat on a jump or something, or about to impact a mogul at high speed, like that has helped me.
Nope, and I will agree with that, Conrad, especially as you talk about compound movement. We're talking about squatting here. I'm going to challenge you guys if you do squat. I know most people usually on the way down they inhale, on the way up they exhale, right? But as you load your spine with weight and you squat, I would actually challenge you to hold your breath all the way down and all the way up, because it'll give you the core and spine stability you need to protect your spine, and at the top, blow out the energy. Just a little challenge there.
So
Yep, Lynn?
Have you ever snowboarded with a weightlifting belt, or Corey, have you? Or is anybody?
I have.
You have? When?
Yeah. I did it last season. It was out of necessity because of my back, but I actually found some cool things because of it.
Lynn, my core is so strong, I would never need that. So no, it's not something I've ever tried. I actually don't. I know I like I said, I do CrossFit, but I actually don't use a belt. I prefer not to. I prefer my core to just work as it is. And rarely will I use a belt, maybe for like deadlifts or something, but that's just me.
Dana, have you? Because you get the feedback. It's not to help lift. It's just to get the feedback from the lift.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't own a lifting belt, so no, I don't. And I don't use it in CrossFit either because we don't have extras at my gym. So I'm at the mercy of my own body to make my own body strong when I'm squatting.
Oh no, use my own muscles. God forbid.
when you guys come here, we'll try it, okay?
Okay, I'm down.
Tommy should use one and race border cross. He'll be unstoppable if he weighed 200 pounds.
All right. As I wrap up, I like something that Ronnie did by leaving you with a quote. Mine isn't so much related to breathing, but it is a quote that has really started to resonate with me. And it kind of taps into what Ronnie was saying, but also some things that Corey Ann mentioned earlier. And the quote is from Nick Saban. What he says is, win, lose, or draw, he always goes back and reevaluates the film. Because just because we won by 60 doesn't mean we played well. And just because we lost by 60 doesn't mean we played bad. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, KB. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you.
You guys crushed it. So I'm going to unmute everybody for a sec.
I have one quick question. Does anybody know any snowboard exams that aren't canceled for the rest of the winter? Because I desperately want to take one.
Snowboard. Why don't we have a hiking exam? Get away from each other.
You can go down to that.
Those might be canceled too.
I don't know. They're not even closing their schools yet. I think they're going to be canceled.
I think I heard New Zealand's closed its borders currently.
To anyone who's not an Aussie or Kiwi.
Sucks to suck.
It does, Conrad. It does suck to suck, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
Way to make this real, Ronnie.
All right, hey guys, thank you so much for coming. I have a few questions for you guys. If we did another one of these at 4 p.m. on Monday, who'd be down for that?
You know, my schedule's super full, but like I can check. We'll see.
What time zone are you in?
Rocky Mountain. So
Okay, then yes.
Are you East Coast?
I'm East Coast.
Okay, that's what I thought.
There's a few of us on the East Coast.
Yeah, because that way it wouldn't be so late and like easy. Your kids go to bed, I know, around this time, so this time's rough.
Yeah, they're running around terrorizing my wife right now.
They're your kids, Easy.
All right, you guys cool?
Hey, Easy, just play sleep. Just pretend to be sleep, Easy.
Play sleep? Yeah, that sounds like a great game to play.
Cool. In terms of presenting, I have ideas. Can I privately message the people I'd like to present, or would anyone like to present next week or on Monday?
Say that one more time.
Andrew's
who would like to present on Monday? Andrew?
Maybe. I don't know. Depends on if I get through this book.
All right.
Oh, Andrew
I
just
really
started breathing
like
through
to
his
chime
chest. Did
in.
you guys see that? Did you see Andrew start breathing through his chest when you asked him that? He got super nervous.
I know Max Liebman wanted to join on this phone call. I'm not really sure what happened, but I mean, he's a world-class snowboard coach. I vote we try to get him to present.
Okay, I don't know him. Do you want to reach out to him and have him contact me with the topic?
I'll talk to him, Lynn. No worries. He's a good friend.
Thanks.
Okay.
And I also have heard way too little from David Orlando, so step your game up.
He's a manager. He doesn't like to talk anymore.
I'm just a sponge.
Well, does anybody want to? I can talk anytime, but I want to give everybody else chances to talk to.
How about a maybe from me? Maybe.
Okay, so for Max, maybe for Corey, maybe for Andrew.
I'll let you know at about 4:05 on Monday.
I would be down to do another one of these. You can count me in.
Okay, to participate or to talk?
To participate, but I would love to get some like group feedback on what you guys are doing now to one cross train, which is a really good thing. I love you guys bringing all that up, but now that you're going to start transitioning to your other sports, your spring and summer sports, what parts of that do you actually bring back outside of movement patterns? We got on the highlighting. I'd love to get some more feedback on a lot of other people's sports. I coach a lot of downhill mountain biking in the summers, and so turn dynamics is such a big and universal and connected thing. I would love to see where other people are bringing different experiences to snowboarding.
Would you like to facilitate a discussion on that next?
Oh man. I think I can make something like that happen.
All right, I'm gonna count on you, Adam, to do that, and then I'll
Okay.
need Max, and then we'll have 2, and then if anybody wants to be a third, or I can always, if nobody is able to. That's you guys.
Sounds great.
All right.
So,
Well,
Lynn, I
thanks
just
very
wanna
much,
thank
Lynn,
you
for putting
again.
this
I'm-
together. Appreciate you a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
echo that sentiment. I think it's given us an opportunity to stay connected to the thing that we all love, that draws us closer together, and sharing these ideas will definitely help. And Tommy, thanks for getting creative with the snowboard addiction on the couch cushion, bro.
I was
Taking
doing
it to the next level.
You got to do what you got to do, guys. All right. Yeah, that was a good one. Don't tell my mom.
It was really great to meet all of you guys. I know there's a couple of faces I know and a couple of names I've heard, but it's just really cool to see everyone, especially outside of their gear, because I would probably only recognize about that much anyway.
Can you guys all post where you're at right now?
I'm on my bed.
I'm pretty sure we're all in our houses.
Ass.
In my van. That's awesome.
I am actually outside on a lake right now, this very moment. Somehow it's still sunny too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to meet all you guys and see all you guys, and yeah, awesome. Really stoked for doing this.
This is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Thank you guys.
I think
Yep.
Have a good
See you guys
night.
on Monday.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
Later.
Good night.
Yep,
Take
Monday
care,
it
everyone.
is.
Thank you.
Rip.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks,
Thank
Lynn.
you.